Episode 15, The Threshold. The door swung open with deliberate slowness, and Diego Santos stepped into Agent Carter's office like he owned it. He looked exactly as he had in the warehouse photographs. Expensive leather jacket over a black silk shirt, gold chain catching the fluorescent light, dark hair slicked back with precision. But here, in the institutional beige of a federal office, his presence felt like a violation of natural law. He was wrong here, like blood on snow. Behind him stood two men in cheap suits. Not Flaco and Carlos. These were different soldiers, ones Miguel didn't recognize. Probably the crew Diego kept for legitimate business, the ones with clean records who could walk into federal buildings without setting off alarms. Carter's gun remained drawn, aimed center mass at Diego's chest. The agent's hand was steady, his voice level. "Mr. Santos, this is a restricted area. I'm going to need you to turn around and leave." Diego's eyes swept the room, taking in everything with the practiced assessment of a predator. He saw the 5 teenagers first. Miguel and Carmen pressed together in the corner, Marcus standing rigid with his notebook, Tommy with his arms crossed over the camera hidden beneath his sweatshirt, Ray trembling on the bench. Diego's gaze lingered on his sister. "Carmen." His voice was soft, almost gentle. "Mommy is worried sick? You didn't come home last night." Carmen's hand tightened on Miguel's. She didn't speak. Diego's attention shifted to Carter, and his expression changed, still calm, but with an edge of steel underneath. "Agent Carter, is it? I'm here to file a missing person report. My sister," he gestured toward Carmen, "is 17 years old, a minor. She's been missing since yesterday evening, and I have reason to believe she's been coerced into leaving home by individuals with criminal intent." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. Diego wasn't here to threaten or intimidate. He was here to use the law itself as a weapon. Carter's expression didn't change. "Your sister is here of her own free will, Mr. Santos. She's assisting in an ongoing federal investigation." "An investigation?" Diego's eyebrows rose in theatrical surprise. "Into what, exactly? And what kind of federal agent conducts interviews with minors without parental consent or legal representation present?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Miguel saw Carter's jaw tighten fractionally, the only sign that Diego's words had landed. "These young people came to us with evidence of criminal activity," Carter said carefully. "I'm within my rights to take their statements." "Evidence," Diego smiled, and it was the same smile Miguel had seen 100 times. The one that meant someone had made a fatal miscalculation. "What kind of evidence? Photographs, perhaps? Taken during what I'm sure was illegal surveillance of private property?" Tommy's arms tightened around the camera beneath his sweatshirt. Diego took a step further into the room, his men following. Carter raised his gun slightly, not threatening, but establishing a line. "That's far enough, Mr. Santos." "I'm unarmed. Agent Carter. You can have your men search me if you'd like." Diego spread his arms slightly, the picture of cooperation. "I'm simply a concerned brother looking for his missing sister. A legitimate businessman who's been the victim of harassment by local teenagers with grudges and wild imaginations." "Businessman," Ray's voice cracked as he spoke, surprising everyone including himself. "You sell heroin. We saw you." Diego turned his attention to Ray, and Miguel saw his friend shrink back against the bench. "Raymond Tucker. I know your grandmother's son, sweet woman, works at the church on 167th Street, doesn't she? It would break her heart to know you've been spreading lies about people, getting mixed up with the wrong crowd." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Miguel felt rage surge through his exhaustion. "Don't you fucking talk about his grandmother," Miguel said, his voice low and dangerous. "Don't you talk about any of their families." Diego's eyes met his, and for a moment, the mask slipped. Miguel saw the cold calculation underneath, the absolute certainty that Diego would win because he always won. "Miguel, I'm disappointed in you, son. After everything I did for you, the opportunities I gave you, and this is how you repay me? By kidnapping my sister? By conspiring with these—" "I didn't kidnap anyone." Miguel stepped forward, pulling away from Carmen. "She came because she wanted to get away from you, because you've been controlling her whole life, using her, just like you used me." "Enough." Carter's voice cut through the rising tension. "Mr. Santos, I'm going to ask you one more time to leave this office. Your sister is not under duress. She's here voluntarily. If you have concerns about her welfare, you can file a formal complaint through proper channels. Diego studied Carter for a long moment. Then he reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Carter's gun came up instantly, and Diego's men tensed. "Easy, Agent Carter." Diego's hand emerged holding a business card. "Just my lawyer's information, because I think we both know this situation is more complicated than you're making it sound." He placed the card on Carter's desk with deliberate care. "My sister is a minor. These boys have convinced her to run away from home, to participate in what I'm sure will turn out to be a fabricated story about illegal activities they claim to have witnessed. Activities that, even if they occurred, which they didn't, would have been observed through illegal trespassing and surveillance." Diego's smile returned, colder now. "Any evidence obtained through illegal means is inadmissible in court, Agent Carter. You know that, I know that, and I'm sure the U.S. attorney will be very interested to know that a federal agent is basing an investigation on photographs taken by teenagers who broke into private property." Marcus felt the careful architecture of their plan beginning to crack. Diego was right. They had trespassed. They had conducted surveillance without authorization. The photographs Tommy had risked his life for might be worthless in a courtroom. But Carter's expression remained neutral. "Mr. Santos, I appreciate your legal concerns. However, I have reason to believe these young people have information relevant to ongoing federal investigations into organized crime and narcotics trafficking in the Bronx. That gives me authority to interview them regardless of their age or the circumstances under which they obtained their information." Ongoing investigations. Diego's voice was thoughtful. "Interesting. I wasn't aware the federal government was investigating anything in my neighborhood. What a coincidence that these kids show up with their story just as you happen to be working on related cases." The implication was clear. Diego thought Carter was lying, that there was no existing investigation, that the teenager's evidence was all Carter had. And from the slight tightening around Carter's eyes, Miguel realized Diego might be right. "My client list includes several prominent attorneys. Agent Carter," Diego continued, his voice conversational now, almost friendly, "including 2 who specialize in civil rights cases. I'm sure they'd be very interested to hear about federal agents detaining minors without parental notification, denying them access to legal counsel, potentially coercing testimony through fear and intimidation." He turned to look at the teenagers again, his gaze moving from face to face. "These are good kids from my neighborhood. I've known most of them since they were children. Miguel here, I tried to help him, gave him work when his family needed money, tried to be a mentor, a father figure. And this is what I get in return. False accusations, betrayal. The performance was masterful." If Miguel hadn't seen Diego orchestrate a heroin deal with his own eyes, hadn't watched him threaten and manipulate and control, he might have almost believed it himself. Carmen's voice was barely a whisper, but in the tense silence of the office, everyone heard it. "You're a liar." Diego's attention snapped to his sister. For the first time, Miguel saw genuine emotion cross his face, something that might have been hurt or anger or both. "Carmen, please. Whatever these boys have told you, whatever they've convinced you to believe, I saw the heroin." Carmen's voice grew stronger. "I've seen it for years, Diego. In our apartment, in your room. I'm not stupid. I know what you do, what you are." The silence that followed was absolute. Diego's men shifted uncomfortably. Carter watched carefully, his gun still trained on Diego, but his expression neutral, professional. Diego's face went very still. "You don't know what you're saying. Carmen, you're confused. These boys have filled your head with—" "I packed your shipments." The words burst from Carmen like a dam breaking. "Last summer, when Maria was sick and couldn't come to work, you had me wrap packages in our kitchen, white powder in plastic bags. You told me it was medicine for your business. But I'm not a child anymore, Diego. I know what it was." Miguel felt Carmen trembling beside him, but her voice didn't waver. She was standing up to her brother for the first time in her life, and Miguel had never loved her more than in that moment. Diego's mask cracked completely. "You need to stop talking, right now." "Or what?" Carmen stepped forward, pulling away from Miguel. "You'll hit me? Like you hit Mommy when she asked too many questions? You'll lock me in my room again? I protected you." Diego's voice rose for the first time, real anger bleeding through. Everything I did to keep this family safe, to give us a life better than what Papi left us. You think the money for your quinceañera came from nowhere? Your new clothes, the food on our table? I built an empire from nothing, and I did it for us. For you. You did it for yourself. Carmen's voice was sad now, not angry. You did it because you liked the power, the fear, the control, and you used me and Mommy as excuses. The air in the office felt charged, dangerous. Miguel could see Diego struggling to regain his composure, to slip the mask back into place. But Carmen had cracked something fundamental. Carter's voice cut through the tension. Mr. Santos, I think it's time for you to leave. Now, my backup will be here in approximately 25 minutes, and when they arrive, I'm going to have a lot of questions about your business operations. Questions based on evidence that, regardless of how it was obtained, gives me probable cause to investigate further. Probable cause. Diego's laugh was bitter. Based on what? The word of teenagers? Photographs that won't hold up in court? The accusations of my confused sister who's clearly been manipulated by a boy she's infatuated with? He looked at Miguel, and there was something almost like disappointment in his eyes. I had plans for you, Miguel. Real plans. You could have been somebody. Could have had respect, money, a future. Instead, you threw it away for what? For her? He gestured at Carmen. For them? He indicated Marcus, Tommy, and Ray. For some fantasy about justice? For the right thing, Miguel said quietly. Something you wouldn't understand. Diego stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned back to Carter. Agent Carter, I'm going to leave now, as you requested, but this isn't over. My lawyers will be filing complaints with the U.S. Attorney's Office by this afternoon. Federal harassment, improper detention of minors, violation of parental rights. We'll see how your investigation holds up under scrutiny. He moved toward the door, his men following. But at the threshold, he paused and looked back at Carmen. Mommy misses you. She's crying, asking where you are, if you're safe. Whatever you think I've done, whatever lies these boys have told you, she loves you, and so do I. Carmen's face crumpled slightly, but she didn't respond. Diego's gaze swept over all of them one final time. You've made your choice, all of you. I hope it was worth it. Then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. His men followed, and the door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded like a cell door slamming shut. Carter lowered his gun but didn't holster it. He moved to the window and looked down at the street below. He's leaving the building, getting into a black Lincoln. 2 other men waiting inside. Marcus found his voice. Is he right? About the photographs? About them being inadmissible? Carter turned from the window, his expression unreadable. It's complicated. Evidence obtained by private citizens isn't subject to the same exclusionary rules as evidence obtained by law enforcement. But his lawyers will argue you were acting as agents of the government, that I directed you to conduct surveillance, that it was an illegal search. He set his gun on the desk and rubbed his face with both hands. The truth is, I don't know if your photographs will hold up in court, but they give me enough to start a real investigation. To get warrants, to put pressure on Diego's operation and his suppliers, to build a case the right way. How long will that take? Ray asked. Carter's silence was answer enough. Tommy pulled the camera from beneath his sweatshirt and set it on the desk. These photographs show Diego Santos conducting a drug transaction with a supplier. 7 pictures, clear images of faces, the heroin, money-changing hands. We nearly died getting them. He looked at Carter directly. You're telling us they might not matter? I'm telling you they matter, Carter said carefully. But justice doesn't happen overnight. Building a case against someone like Diego Santos, someone with money, lawyers, connections, takes time, months, maybe years. We don't have years, Miguel said. He knows we betrayed him. He'll come after us, after our families. Carter nodded slowly. Which is why I'm recommending witness protection, for all of you and for your families. New identities, new city, new lives. The U.S. Marshals Service can have you relocated within 48 hours. The words hung in the air like a sentence. Marcus thought of his mother, of her dreams for him, of Columbia University, and the scholarship that would be worthless if he disappeared into witness protection with a new name. Tommy thought of his father, drunk and abusive, but still his father. Ray thought of his grandmother, of the camera she'd given him, of the life he'd mapped out through the viewfinder. Miguel thought of his younger brothers, of Sunday dinners, of the Bronx that had raised him. Carmen thought of her mother, crying and asking where she was. "We can't," Marcus said finally. "We can't just disappear. Our families—" "Your families are already at risk," Carter interrupted. "Diego knows where you live. He knows your routines, your vulnerabilities. If you think he won't use that against you, you're wrong." The door opened suddenly, and everyone jumped. A woman in a dark suit entered, late 30s, African-American, with sharp eyes that took in the scene immediately. "Carter, what's the situation?" "Special Agent Johnson," Carter said. "These are the witnesses I called you about. 5 minors with evidence of narcotics trafficking. The subject just left the building. Diego Santos. Black Lincoln heading north." Johnson's eyes widened fractionally. "Diego Santos? The Diego Santos?" Something in her tone made Miguel's stomach drop. "You know him?" Johnson looked at the teenagers for the first time. Really looked at them. "Diego Santos is on our radar. Has been for 2 years. But he's careful. Very careful. We've never been able to get close enough to build a case." She turned to Carter. "What do they have?" "Photographs. 7 of them. Polaroids showing Santos conducting a drug transaction. Clear images, time-stamped, taken last night at a warehouse in Hunts Point." Johnson's expression shifted from skepticism to intense interest. "Let me see them." Tommy opened the camera and pulled out the photographs, spreading them on Carter's desk. Johnson studied each one carefully, her face giving nothing away. Finally, she looked up. "These are good. Very good. This is Santos?" She pointed to the figure in the leather jacket. "Yes," Miguel said. "That's Diego. And this?" She indicated the other man, the supplier in the expensive suit. "We don't know his name," Marcus said, "but he came from Manhattan, drove a silver Mercedes." Johnson and Carter exchanged a look that Miguel couldn't read. "Do you know him?" Carmen asked. "Maybe," Johnson said carefully. "If it's who I think it is, these photographs are worth more than you realize. This isn't just about Diego Santos anymore." She picked up the phone and stepped away, speaking in low tones. The teenagers stood in exhausted silence, the weight of the night catching up with them. Miguel felt Carmen sag against him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Johnson returned, her expression grim. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. We're moving you to a safe location immediately. Not witness protection. Not yet. A federal safe house where we can debrief you properly, get your full statements, and keep you secure while we verify this information and begin building a case." "What about our families?" Ray asked. "We're sending agents to notify them and offer protective custody if necessary. But honestly, the best way to keep your families safe is to move quickly. If we can use this evidence to arrest Santos and dismantle his organization before he has time to retaliate, everyone's safer." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. "How long will we be in this safe house?" 48 hours, minimum. Maybe longer, depending on how the investigation develops." "I have to be at Columbia in 6 weeks," Marcus said. "I have orientation, registration. I can't just—" "Son, if this goes the way I think it will, you'll make it to Columbia," Johnson said. "But right now your priority is staying alive." The office door opened again, and 2 more agents entered. Both men, both armed, both looking like they could handle whatever came through the door after them. "Transport's ready," one of them said. Johnson nodded. "Let's move. Stay close, stay quiet. We're taking the service elevator to the garage. There's an unmarked van waiting." As they filed toward the door, Miguel caught Carter's eye. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for believing us." Carter's expression softened slightly. "You did the right thing. All of you. That takes courage. Real courage." They moved through the hallway in a tight group, the agents forming a protective box around them. The fluorescent lights seemed too bright after the dim office, and Miguel felt exposed, vulnerable. The service elevator was old and slow, the kind that shuddered and groaned as it descended. Miguel counted floors, 7, 6, and wondered if Diego was somewhere in the building, watching, waiting. 4, 3, 2. The elevator reached the basement garage with a final shudder. The doors opened onto concrete and shadows, the smell of exhaust and oil. A white van sat 30 feet away, engine running, side door open. "Quickly," Johnson said. They ran. Miguel kept his arm around Carmen, half supporting her as they crossed the garage. Marcus was beside him, Tommy just ahead, Ray bringing up the rear with one of the agents. They were 10 feet from the van when Miguel heard it. The screech of tires on concrete, the roar of an engine. He turned and saw a black Lincoln accelerating toward them from the garage entrance, Diego's face visible behind the wheel. Time seemed to slow. Johnson was shouting something. The agents were drawing their weapons. Marcus was pulling Ray toward the van. Tommy was diving through the open door. Miguel grabbed Carmen and threw her toward the van, then turned to face the Lincoln. It was going to hit him. He knew it with absolute certainty. Diego was going to run him down right here in a federal garage, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. But then Carter was there, stepping between Miguel and the car, his gun raised, his voice ringing out across the garage. "Federal agent, stop the vehicle." The Lincoln's brakes screamed. The car slewed sideways, stopping 10 feet from where Carter stood. The driver's door opened. Diego stepped out, his hands raised, his face a mask of calm concern. "Officers, thank God. I was trying to catch you. I forgot to mention, my sister has a medical condition, diabetes. She needs her insulin. I have it in the car. Please, she could die without it." The lie was smooth, practiced, almost believable. Carmen's voice came from inside the van, shaking but clear. "I don't have diabetes. He's lying." Diego's eyes found Miguel's across the garage. In that moment, Miguel saw the truth beneath all the masks. The rage, the betrayal, the absolute promise of retribution. Then Diego smiled. "My mistake. I must have been confused. The stress of my sister running away, you understand. I should go. I'm clearly in the way of official business." He got back in the Lincoln, started the engine, and drove slowly toward the exit. As he passed the van, he looked directly at Miguel one more time. The message was clear. This isn't over. Miguel climbed into the van on shaking legs. Johnson slammed the door shut, and the van pulled away, tires squealing as they accelerated up the ramp toward daylight. Through the back window, Miguel watched the federal building recede. Somewhere up there, in an office on the 7th floor, 7 photographs sat on a desk. Evidence that might or might not be enough to bring down Diego Santos. Evidence they'd risked everything to obtain. Carmen was crying silently beside him, and Miguel pulled her close. Marcus sat across from them, his face gray with exhaustion. Tommy clutched his camera like a lifeline. Ray stared at his hands, which were still shaking. They'd done it. They'd made it to the federal building, convinced the agents, handed over their evidence. They'd survived. But as the van merged into Manhattan traffic, heading toward an unknown safe house and an uncertain future, Miguel couldn't shake the image of Diego's face in the garage. The look that said, "I know where you are. I know what you did. And I'm coming for you." The van turned a corner, and the federal building disappeared from view. 5 teenagers from the Bronx, carrying the weight of testimony that could destroy an empire, rode in silence toward whatever came next. They'd crossed the threshold. There was no going back now.